Hey you guys, it's Watcher Ralph, and I'm here with my sister Christabel, and we're about to get into the spoiler review of Jumanji, a classic that came out in 1995, starring Robin Williams, Bonnie Hunt, Kirsten Dunst, David Allen Greer, and
Phoebe Newworth?
yes, and Jonathan Hyde, who played his father in the movie. Directed by Joe Johnston, which is a director of great movies like Honey, I Shrunk the Kid, Hidalgo, and good movies like Captain America First, Avenger, Jurassic Park 3, which obviously we could have the little jokes right here, a meme thrown in. Alan.
I agree that this movie is a classic. I think it's aged very well. Works particularly in today's age. Considering that a new Jumanji just came out, you would think that, maybe it's to replace a dated version. But that's not the case. I think that in many ways, this movie is superior to that new film because this has heart. And I think the biggest reason for it having heart is Robin Williams.
Yes,
I am a huge Robin Williams fan, so I'm already biased. But I think that's something that he managed the majority of his career, particularly when he was making films that were geared towards younger audiences. But I love the fact that this appeals to young audiences and old audiences. I loved this when I was a kid and it came out, and rewatching it again recently for this, I loved it just as much or even more possibly because I think that you're even more reminiscent given that there will be no more Robin Williams films. So it's just something that was really fun, but like I said, also has that heart.
Yeah, this movie definitely tugs at my heartstrings. I mean, like you're saying, Robin Williams is one of the greatest comedians, and he's the one that proved to me the fact that great comedians possibly better at drama than what you could ever expect. I mean, he's proven it in every film he's ever done. He adds this sincerity and this innocence to him. Mm-hmm. Like you're saying, like to me, he's like a man-child, the hairiest man-child you ever see. With literally, kind of matches me a little bit, but I mean, he brings this heart to the role in every role he's ever performed. But since this one lends itself perfectly, like a movie like Jack, where it's him being obviously the physique of a man, but inside he's a child. He's basically like Shazam, the original Shazam, or the original Big when it comes to Tom Hanks, of course. And to me, that's what this movie brings more than anything, because once he comes back into the frame after 26 years of being within the jungle, you could see the sadness, you could see the fear, but you could also see, like I said, this innocence that at the end of the day, he never grew up. He's still this child. And to me, that's the beauty in the world.
And the awe of like how much he's missed.
Yes.
He's of course been hardened by all of his experiences, and that's entirely understandable, especially given that he's entirely alone for 26 years, apart from this foe, which is a replication of his father,
yes, exactly.
Given the context of their relationship and how their relationship ends before he goes into the game. But even given all that, he's hardened. He still has like this awe. He comes out, he sees his home. Obviously, he's overjoyed because he's finally back home.
Yeah.
But
looking
when
for his parents,
but when he gets the first opportunity to drive the car, and he's like, I've never driven a car before,
yes,
or even he shaves, and obviously he has all these cuts, and they joke about like, Peter's character makes fun of him. He's like, I've never had to shave before. Just like moments like that where you see like it's a grown man, but you appreciate the fact that he has like this childlike innocence to him.
But even more importantly, so it's like these are the things that a father would teach his son, would teach him how to drive, would teach him how to shave.
Yes.
And the sad thing is that it isn't until the end that he is confronted with the fact that his father is as afraid as he is with dealing with a son as much as him dealing with his father.
Yep.
Because just like you said, the representation that he sees his father as is this hunted, someone that is so hard on him. But by the end you realize, and throughout the movie, once he talks to a few people that talk about his father, what's become of him over the years, and to hear that his father loved him completely, that never stopped looking for him, never stopped having hope until he died. To me, that made him realize, that his father isn't who he thought he was. But more importantly, too, that whole confrontation of you trying to fight who you think your father is, but in certain cases you become him. No matter what, you truly become him, because even though obviously he was in the jungle for 26 years, he also, his childhood was based on seeing his father this certain way.
Yep.
So when he comes out and he's dealing with Peter, this little kid, he starts treating him exactly like how his father would.
Yeah, and that's the thing as well, that, you know, he acknowledges it and he catches himself, but then, as you're saying, as the movie progresses, he's understanding where his father was coming from. Like you said, it's a lot of that is based on fear and just based on miscommunication.
Exactly.
You know, the father is already ready to jump on him when he thinks it's just the one bully, but then he finds out that it was more than one kid at the start of the film, and then he acknowledges, like, oh, I didn't realize that.
I'm so sorry.
You know,
He even tells him, I'm so sorry that, Alan, I'm so sorry. I told you that if I would have known, like he says it literally like that. So to me, there are clues within that to see that, you know, he's misinterpreting what is, because he's a child. So there are moments that you could clearly see that the father wants to, even though, you know, it ends within a fight, which is another clear indication, at least to you as the viewer, to believe that yes, his father is a little stern, a little bit more stern than what he should be. But again, like we say, that's the beauty. And to me, that's another thing within this movie that I consider it one of my favorite Christmas movies of all time because of the ending.
Yeah.
Of course, because the ending has so much heart. And to even hear that even though you don't get to see the father, you get to see Robin Williams calling up his father and saying he's going to pick him up the next day. And he can't wait, that's the biggest Christmas present he can have.
And that says so much as well, because we're looking at, you know, not that big a time difference from the start of the film, but we see that when he comes back in like that alternate timeline, both his parents have been dead for quite some time, and it shows that, you know, his father never losing him and them being able to probably, you know, grow as a father and son, that like literally extends his life. You know? Exactly. His father's still around, which I think that's beautiful as well, because that gives us as an audience an opportunity to really be happy for the both of them, as opposed to if the father had still died
during
in,
exactly.
in this new timeline. You know, we would have wondered to ourselves, like, oh, you know, what was their relationship like? So I think that phone call is really important in showing that they really did stay together after the fact. And something that's funny is, like, me rewatching it now as an adult, I acknowledged that when the father tells him about going to that school, it's out of pride and it's like a good thing.
Exactly.
But obviously,
it's
Alan,
like a reward.
Alan interprets it differently, and as a kid, I interpreted it as Alan too. Like, oh, you want to send them away? That's horrible. So I think that's really interesting as well. As just like as the audience, depending on where we are in our life, and we watch it, like that can change as well. Who's not necessarily whose side we're on, but like which perspective makes more sense to us.
And to me, something that this movie did better than its successor, it was dealing with the retconning of time, which is, since this one chose to focus on seeing the perspective of them as children, going back to them and moving forward from that, and seeing that obviously during Christmas, because realize that final scene is a year before the timeline that we've been dealing with the whole movie. But of course it comes back to that moment because they're trying to prevent the death of course, Peter and
Judy's parents.
Which to me that's why I say it's one of my favorite Christmas movies, because of course they're able to fix everything and actually move forward in even a better way. Like you said, the father still being alive, Bonnie Hunt's character being pregnant,
being happy, not the crazy lady in town anymore. I'm just smiling to myself because I'm just remembering, like, you know, when they find out that they've just arrived, Judy and Peter with their parents, and like how creepy and weird they must seem to like Peter and Judy, because they're like, oh, okay guys, like you're being really nice. Presents? Sure, why not?
Exactly. Oh my god, we know like, everything about you. We've heard so much. Of course. And then to me, one thing that I've realized that there's been this complaint over the years about the movie, and me watching it recently, I have no problem with it, but I acknowledge it, which is that everybody says they should have just known every time they throw the dice, the effect of that is they have to run. You know? And it's like they still wait. You know, and that's the criticism that of course they have to read. I'm assuming they have to read it for it to get to the next stage.
Yeah.
But it's like most people just think like throw the dice and just run. Might as well, because you know
they want to be prepared for what's coming. They want to know exactly what it is. Because no matter
what, they're like, oh yeah, they're extra prepared. They're literally going up to a bookcase as it's shaking, and he's like, run, and they're like, why? Exactly, but at this point, just run. If you hear the word run, just run. You don't need to know why.
It's a riddle. They need to figure out the riddle. I mean, we had the game. It wasn't the fancy version when it came out after.
Yeah, I wish I could show that right now.
Yeah, no, that was obviously they didn't have the technology for like the cool screen, so it was like really.
Like we can't find it now because we had to bury it to make sure no one finds it.
Do you hear that? It's the drumming.
And one thing I want to say about its successor as well is that I love this ending where it ends up on the beach. And when I saw the spoilers, when I saw the new movie coming out, I actually thought it was this perfect beginning, but it wasn't until me watching it now that I realized it doesn't match because the beach was literally in a different country. You clearly see it's not America anymore, and yet here it starts out, you know, with this kid. It's supposed to be the same timeline, and I thought it was so cool to see that. But then now rewatching this and acknowledging that they altered it just to make sense in the story took away from one of those moments to me.
You know, and I think that's one of the faults of, you know, you talk a lot about the successor in your review, but just that nostalgia kick that Hollywood's having right now in film and television, where it's like, okay, let's repackage something that worked and, you know, repurpose it and so attach that name still to it, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, and that's not me hating on the new Jumanji. But you know, when you really think about it, did that have to be Jumanji?
No, of course
not.
Not.
The only real reference, and spoiler, is just that they're somewhere in the jungle and it says Alan Parrish was here, and that's like the only real throwback to the original.
And to me, the other one was the beginning, but like I said, it kind of took it away. Yeah, exactly.
So really, that's me just saying that if it ain't broke, don't fix it, kind of thing, or you know that push for more original content. I have no problem with remakes, but
come on,
again,
The Rock, you could do anything and make it work. Why do a Baywatch? Why do a Jumanji? Like, it's a good film, so I'm not gonna knock on it as much, but it's not.
It's not the original.
It's not the original.
It doesn't, and again, it comes down to that heart, and I think it's because, you know, not just because it's Robin Williams, but because this was like an original idea. It's adapted from a children's book, but meaning like in terms of on the screen, it's original. Whereas maybe if in the second one, Welcome to the Jungle, if it was, you know, an original film, meaning not adapted from something else, that it could have that heart, because, you know, it is a great cast, and The Rock has demonstrated that he could have heart.
Of course,
but I'll stop talking about that. I'll stop talking about that one. Let's talk more about Robin Williams. He's awesome.
Exactly. I was going to say, you said it has to do with the script. No, I'm sorry. It's all Robin Williams.
Yeah.
It's all Robin Williams.
Everything.
Any film he's ever done, and this is one of the top. I mean, we could go into the comedy of something like you said that is mainly for kids, like Flubber. He brought heart to Flubber.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So to me, at that point, he's proven that anything he does was always miraculous, and I miss him to death. So now let's go back to going to a high note. Let's rate this movie. Now, for me, as you could see, I mean, if we're going back and doing this video, you should acknowledge that we put this on a pedestal, and like we said from the beginning, we consider it a classic. So that's why, of course, I give this movie
consider it a classic, whether young or old, so because of that, I'm giving it
Alright, so there you go. I hope you guys liked the review. And I hope you guys check out my other review on the newer movie, Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle. Leave your comments down below. Tell me what you think of the classic. Tell me what you think of the newer movie. Tell me what you think is better. For now, I'd like to thank my sister Christabel for being part of this review. and I'd like to thank you all for watching. So share, like, and subscribe, and you can check out my other reviews by clicking over here. You can check out the podcast by clicking right here, and you can subscribe by clicking right where my sister's face is, or right around here. So, there you go. So, till we meet again, goodbye. I'll see you guys